In my previous video, I showed you how to compose using an ostinato, but only using one note in that ostinato rhythm. This time, let's try to do something that uses different notes. We could still use the example of the don't clap this one back, but let's use the first letter of each word. Don't, D, clap, C, this one back, B. So let's compose something using D, C, and B. Let's try to find a rhythm that works with those three notes. We can add the B flat as well. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think the first version is quite nice. It's D, 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 C, 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 B, B, B flat, B flat. Perfect. So let's polish it a little bit. So, all those had to be quantized. Those quantize, and this one is being a triplet. Let's quantize it to a triplet in eighth. There you go. Let's listen to it one more time. Perfect. So don't clap this one back. D, C, and B. We found a rhythm that works quite nicely with it. Somehow it reminds me a little bit of Indiana Jones. If you listen to the soundtrack, you will notice that John Williams in that case uses plenty of ostinatos. So let's find something heavy in the low part of the orchestra. Let's go for string section. We can go for basses. Let's listen to it. Perfect. Now it's not a great sound, but it works for now. Why don't we start by adding some percussion to this? So we add orchestral percussion orchestral kit. Let's see. Let's add a percussion line to this now. Perfect. Same story, we can take this and polish it a little bit. Something a little more cinematic than our previous examples. So let's highlight all of this, but avoid all the triplets. So we go to 8 notes. This can be 8 notes too. This can be 8 notes. Let's polish the rest. Once again, nice and clean. Cool. The last thing that needs to be addressed is the triplets. So we put a triplet. Nice and clean. Same thing here. Now that we have quantized the percussion part, this is the result. At this point, if I had a little more time, I would just add a little bit of a drum roll. I could add some cymbals. I could make it more interesting. But the point of this video is our ostinato. So let's find something that would work using other instruments. Let's go for cellos. What kind of chords do we hear? When I listen to this bass line, I can hear a note repeated over and over again, which would be a G. So let's try to copy this double bass part that we made. We copied exactly as it is on the cello line, but this time, instead of having all those notes played, let's put all of it on a G. Let's listen to the result. Fantastic. Why don't we try to find something that would work nicely on a viola as well? I have no idea where this composition is going to go, and I don't know exactly what's happening harmonically. I'm still deciding. There's absolutely nothing wrong in being instinctive about this. And sometimes the best way to go about this is just to copy what you already have and try to modify it. This time, instead of having a G repeated over and over again, we can ask maybe the viola to do something a little different, still with the same rhythm, but this time we go up from G, start with a B. Now here, instead of doing what the cello does, we can try to find another note that works. Now if you stay on a B, it's going to clash with the C in the bass. So let's take this. Let's go to A. It might sound horrible, we'll see. And then instead of playing the G again or the B again, which in this case are going to be played by the cello on the double bass, we can go up a little bit, and let's see what happens if we ask the viola to play a D instead. Again, it's a bit random, but let's try. Not bad. It's not perfect, but it's not bad. I think this note should be up there. Let's try again. Not bad. I'm quite happy with this. Again, the polishing side of the work is going to happen later on. It's much better to just throw your ideas, see what stays there, see what goes away. Don't fall in love with your ideas, but try, give it a good go. Now let's listen to it again one last time. Very good. I think what's missing now at this moment in time is a nice melody that sits on this. And again, you can take Indiana Jones as a good example of a piece that has a beautiful melody, very, very melodic and very, very nice, on a very, very rhythmical ostinato. And this could be a good example for that. So let's invert the order of this. We're going to put the cellos above the bass and the violas so that we keep the right order of the orchestra. And right now, let's try to find a nice melody that would work with the violin section. So let's change this to violin 1. I can hear a G major played by this, roughly speaking. And it goes towards G minor at the end. So major and minor, no problem with that. Let's listen to it and see if by playing this little section over and over again, we come up with a nice melody. Now, depending on what kind of cinematic content you have in mind, you can go for something more epic, less epic, faster, slower, and so on. But again, this is just an exercise. Generally, if you're trying to evoke something that is hero-like or epic in any way or form, normally the fifth work quite well as an interval, or the fourth. So, for example, 5-1 works quite well. Like in this case, would be. Sometimes using octaves also gives this sense of hero line. So let's try. There you go. I think this would work. Let's try and record it. Very good. As you can hear in the melody, once I establish the first 5-1 and then adding the octave, the first time I go down to the fifth again, the second time I change it a little bit. I recommend you find the right balance between doing something that the audience can follow, so repeating the essence of your line, but adding some extra stuff every time, just to make things a little interesting. Remember that the best compositions are the ones that are repetitive enough for your audience to follow, but they have variations enough to make everything interesting. So finding the right balance between these two components will make your composition way more interesting. Now, if we want to try to be like a string orchestra, we can add violin 2, for example. Let's add the second violins here. And again, we can take the melody that we just recorded from violin 1, and let's try to harmonize it. So maybe this time, instead of doing D, G, we could have the second violins doing the notes under it in the same key, being in G major instead of doing D, G. The three notes of the G major chords are going to be G, B, and D. So if you follow the melody, but instead of starting from the D, you start from the lower note, you're going to have a nice harmonization. So let's try to move this D to B, and this G to D, and this one. And instead of landing on a D here, it's probably going to go to a B, and this one just above it. Let's listen to it. It might be a disaster. Now, I made a mistake there because in the bass line we have a B flat. So let's move this one to a B flat. I think it's clashing at the moment. That B flat I think should stay in the bass. So let's find another note that would work. Maybe a G. Perfect, and you can copy this line and make it similar in the second half, like this. Let's keep following the same procedure, and let's just lower everything to the following note that belongs to G. And again. So in this case, we're going high to the high D, so we can make this G. Let's listen to it. Perfect. Again, this is just the initial part. I'm not happy with many of the voicings that I ended up creating, but there's no problem. Try to think of your composition like a painting. When you start a painting, you start with a coat of a general color, and then you start shaping the things very roughly, and then you go into details. Try to keep the same approach. If you wait for bar 1 to be perfect in order to move on to bar number 2, you're probably never gonna achieve the results that you want. You need to leave the space for the composition to just manifest itself, and just be patient with it. There you go. This is just a small example of something a little more cinematic, using an ostinato line that doesn't sit on the same note all the time.